Hello everyone. If you like this audiobook and want to listen to more, please consider subscribing. And if you like this video, like it as well, that it enjoy.
Don't lie to a psychic. After getting hit by a paper book bad by Cynthia for the 10th time. Luffy treatment with Rayleigh. Saturo. Can we stop? Cynthia. No, we're getting there. Just bear with it. Try to feel the surroundings. She paused. PFF'd. He. On the side, Escanor and Oriana were laughing their hearts out. Oriana literally fell onto her back while grabbing Escanor for support. Saturo then requested Cynthia to remove his glasses. His instincts were screaming at him to take them off. Even the black glasses couldn't fully block the effects, since his eyes were fueled by two different energies. Cynthia. You sure? It'll take longer. Inner thoughts. Damn it, now I have to hold my laughter and actually act. My perfect plan won't fall apart before I get at least a year's worth of blackmail material. Saturo. Just remove them. Cynthia grunted, then took them off, forcing a smile, though a vein popped on her forehead. Now, with no limiter except the blindfold, his senses shifted. He could only perceive. Now, with no limiter except the blindfold, his senses shifted. He could only perceive, but what he perceived wasn't darkness. It was everything. At first, it was faint, like ripples. Then, it sharpened. He could now see the energy within Pokémon. But the real difference was, he could see his own energy. And manipulate it. Well, not freely. Not yet. He had to concentrate, for the first time. This energy enhanced his body, similar to how Ash was buffed by Victini in the movie. But only to about half that level. Because instead of fully accepting it, he was suppressing his own nature. He picked up a stone and threw it. The stone flew far, and cracked a boulder in the distance, though it shattered on impact. He picked up another one, threw it. This time, the boulder broke. Cynthia, Oriana, and Escanor. Cynthia. Wait, how did he even know there was a boulder there? He's blindfolded right now. Saturo looked up at her. His gaze, cold, almost murderous. Well now, he said quietly. There's someone who was lying, wasn't there? Cynthia. No, you just got stronger because of that training method from the myth. A chill ran down her spine. Wait, how did he catch on? Meanwhile, Oriana and Escanor exchanged looks. Escanor. What do we do? Oriana. What do you mean, what do we do? The answer is obvious. Escanor. You don't mean. Oriana. Of course we run. She immediately took off, doing a full Jotaro-style sprint. Escanor. Degree equals degree. Saturo. How did I catch on, huh? Cynthia. How? Saturo smirked slightly. I'm reading your mind, you monster. 2 comments 0 vote, explanations. Well, I need to tell you about the world. This is all about the Pokémon world and the gym structure. Of course, I am not doing this because my mind is completely blank today, brain fog and all that, along with dizziness and headaches, I guess. Stay hydrated and stay safe. If you have AC, even better. There are officially 3 ways to become a Pokémon trainer in this world. 1. Recommendation. If a trainer is recommended or is in contact with a Pokémon professor. Let's take Professor Oak for example. The trainer would need to send the Pokémon they capture to the professor, who would study them and try to provide them with the closest possible environment to their natural habitat. Then there are additional requirements. The trainer needs to either win all 8 badges, or remain active within a 1-year period. If a trainer is caught mistreating their Pokémon, first offense, they would be heavily fined. Depending on the injuries, it might only result in a fine. Second offense, their trainer license would be terminated, and they would spend the next 2 years in jail. Severe case death or disabling injury, they would be sent straight to jail. Most of their Pokémon would be taken by the league, and the associated professor who recommended them or gave them a starter would also be punished for negligence. 2. Poké School. You've seen it in the anime, but here it's a bit different. There are actually 2 types of Poké Schools. Junior and Middle School. These teach essentials like calculations, geography, and basic Pokémon theory. High School, Trainer Academy. This level is solely focused on Pokémon and branches into real-world jobs such as nurses, officers, and trainers. The Trainer Academy teaches everything essential. However, while studying there, students are allowed to own only 1 Pokémon. The top 10 students can own up to 3 Pokémon. After completing the academy, trainees are tested both mentally and physically. These exams focus more on the nature and character of the person rather than pure theory. However, the exact details are undisclosed due to NDAs. 3. Internship's most dangerous, most flexible path. This is the last, and either the most dangerous or the easiest path. It depends entirely on where you intern. The most dangerous tier options include Charizard Valley, Blackthorn Dragon Valley. The trainee must work for at least 1 year, or until their advisor approves. This path teaches trainees how to take care of Pokémon and the dangers involved in handling them. Most people choose minor gyms, Pokémon centers or safer paths. Because high-tier internships require character recommendations and strict background checks. After a person finally becomes a trainer. Gyms. There are 2 types of gyms. Minor gyms. Official gyms like the main 8 or 9. They have different badge levels, ranging from 1 to 8 stars. Shout out to Rise of the Gym Leader. Don't mind it, I just liked a bit of this system. The first 2 gyms, like Rock and Water, can only go up to 3 stars Rock, 4 stars Water. Of course, Pokémon battles are not the only way to earn a badge, though they are the easiest. Other methods include tasks, completing 50 to 100 Pokéquests, or even more, within that specific town or city. This not only boosts the economy and tourism but also helps the trainer grow stronger. Recognition by the gym leader. A trainer can earn a badge by gaining the gym leader's recognition. However, the leader must submit a formal explanation of why the trainer earned their respect. They must also provide video or other evidence of the interaction to the league. This method does not apply to Rock and Water gyms, as they are meant to help beginners adapt to the system. Merit-based method. The final method is earning merit, such as eradicating major threats. Receiving a recommendation from a member of the Elite Four. There is no Lance in this system yet, so the current Elite Four has been changed. Almost all are ancient fossils. Except Bruno. The members are Bruno, considered the second strongest. Agatha, the strongest. Price, a Johto racist, past his prime. Blaine, laid back, but nearly on par with Agatha. Gym leaders can recommend candidates they believe can win the Junior League. These candidates are then named the favorites of the year, after a background check. However, this check only covers criminal records, so it is relatively low level. 3 comments 0 vote. Explanation 2 abilities. Writing this from my closet. My mom is definitely not letting me off the hook this time. My teachers have gone insane. 3 normal exams and 2 mega exams every day. I'm exhausted. I am legit feeling ashamed of myself for needing to use AI to make this shit look readable. I will rewrite this chapter after I finish my exams. So if you don't want to read it, don't worry, I will slowly explain it in future. Anyway, this is the explanation before I continue the story. Saturo's power system. As the name suggests, GOJO Satoru. At his core, his ability revolves around space manipulation, but that's only a part of the bigger picture. He is also somewhat of a gag character. He won't fight seriously unless he is pushed to his absolute limit. Core ability, fusion. With the help of his 6 eyes, Saturo can fuse psychic energy and aura into a single force. Adjust the ratio depending on the situation. Strengthen one energy using the other. Example, if he were to fight Mewtwo, he would boost his psychic power using aura. Psychic abilities mixed set. By combining influences, he gains abilities similar to from Mob Psycho 100. Energy manipulation, chlorokinesis, plant manipulation. 100% emotional state boost. From Tatsumaki, extreme telekinesis. Energy shields, decoy creation. From the disastrous life of Seiki K. Elemental manipulation, bilocation, memory alteration. Petrification, duration depends on control. Additional ability. From Satoru Gojo, limited space manipulation, important limitation. All of these abilities are not available immediately. He must train continuously. His power output depends on control and emotional state. At 100% emotional state, his abilities can spike unpredictably. Aura. When enhanced with psychic energy, his aura behaves similarly to Conqueror's Haki, can knock out weaker trainers instantly. Affects most first-stage Pokémon. Exceptions: Dragon types, Fairy types, or those with strong will. Aura capabilities. Enhances physical strength and speed. Can boost Pokémon directly using the user's will. At high levels, can even redirect attacks like Hyper Beam. Can also heal Pokémon using Aura. But that's when he would get blessed by the forest. Requires mutual trust, loyalty between trainer and Pokémon. And no, not that kind of love. Calm down. 1 comments 0 vote. Last days. Saturo slowly rose into the air. At first, it looked awkward, as if he himself wasn't fully used to the sensation yet. His body tilted slightly to one side before stabilizing, but after a few seconds, he stopped wobbling entirely. Then, without warning, he began flying around freely in the sky. Cynthia stared upward blankly. Escanor looked at Oriana. Oriana looked back at Escanor. The three of them shared the exact same thought. ... What kind of plot development is this? Cynthia pointed at him with a trembling finger. How are you flying? Saturo merely smiled in response. It was not a normal smile. It was the smile of someone who had just remembered another person's greatest weakness, and unfortunately for Cynthia, one of her biggest fears happened to be heights. Cynthia instinctively took a step back. WWE can talk about this peacefully. She immediately turned toward her Pokémon for support. Unfortunately, Escanor had already begun walking away. Oriana climbed onto his back before clasping her hands together as though praying for Cynthia's soul. They were surfboarding in the sky. Cynthia's face froze. You traitors! Before she could escape, Saturo suddenly descended from the sky and grabbed her around the waist like a piece of luggage. Saturo. The next second, the two of them shot into the sky. The wind roared past them as the ground became smaller and smaller beneath their feet. Cynthia shut her eyes tightly at first, refusing to look down no matter what happened. But eventually, curiosity won. Slowly, she opened one eye. Then both. Her expression froze. Below them was the lake where they had first met. The water reflected the evening sunlight beautifully while the surrounding mountains looked almost tiny from such a height. The scenery was breathtaking enough to momentarily make Cynthia forget she was currently being kidnapped into the clouds. Then she realized Saturo was carrying her with one arm like a grocery bag. Cynthia slowly turned toward him with the expression of someone preparing a homicide case. Saturo looked back at her innocently. Then he released his grip. For a single second, Cynthia's brain stopped functioning. Then gravity kicked in. She plummeted downward at terrifying speed, tears instantly flying out of her eyes from sheer panic. Right before she crashed into the lake, Saturo suddenly appeared beneath her and caught her effortlessly in his arms like some prince from a romance novel. Cynthia grabbed his collar instantly. You idiot, you absolute bast. Saturo dropped her again. A few moments later, he caught her once more in midair. Cynthia was now one step away from attempted murder. You brat, wait until IGE. He dropped her again. By the time they finally landed near the lake, Cynthia looked completely drained. Her cheeks were puffed up while tears gathered slightly at the corners of her eyes from accumulated emotional damage. Meanwhile, Saturo looked extremely satisfied with himself. Cynthia wanted to yell at him again, but before she could, her eyes unconsciously drifted toward the horizon. The sunset painted the sky orange and gold while the surface of the lake shimmered beautifully beneath the evening light. The cool breeze carried the scent of water and grass through the air. For a brief moment, everything felt peaceful. Even Saturo stopped talking. And somehow, despite wanting to throw him into the lake herself, Cynthia smiled faintly. The next morning, Karma arrived. 100 and NINETYSEVEN. Saturo collapsed facefirst onto the ground, breathing heavily. Cynthia stood nearby with her arms crossed. Keep going. Saturo's expression looked utterly lifeless. After all, Cynthia had apparently forgiven him for yesterday's incident. Which was precisely why she had doubled his training. Escanor sat nearby like a retired martial arts master supervising his disciple, while Oriana waved a tiny handmade flag for moral support. Saturo slowly pushed himself back onto his feet before glancing at Cynthia with a smirk. Do you want that thing to happen to you again? Cynthia smiled sweetly. Far too sweetly. What was that, Saturo? The atmosphere instantly turned dangerous. Saturo wisely decided offense was the best defense and immediately lunged toward her. Cynthia calmly grabbed a frying pan and hurled it at his face. Saturo dodged it effortlessly. Too slow. Clang. Escanor casually redirected the frying pan midair with his tail. At the same time, Oriana jumped onto the spinning pan like it was a skateboard before kicking Saturo directly in the back of the head. Gah! Saturo instantly lost his balance. Since he had already been close to Cynthia, his body stumbled forward uncontrollably and crashed directly into her. Fortunately, or unfortunately, it was not the cliché romantic kind of fall. There was no accidental kiss. No dramatic staring. No sparkling shoujo background. The two of them simply slammed into the ground like victims of a traffic accident. Cynthia's forehead hit the dirt. Saturo rolled sideways into a bush. Escanor looked disappointed. Oriana silently gave them both a score of 2 out of 10. Not that kind of cliché they fell. I don't want that Yuji cosplayer to come out from Singapore and do me like Amos Yee. 2 comments 0 vote. Time skip. Sheesh. Almost forgot to upload today. As time passed, Saturo and Cynthia continued finding new ways to torment each other. Not that kind of torment. The childish kind. The type where both parties lost brain cells daily while everyone around them suffered emotional damage. Surprisingly, Saturo managed to survive Cynthia's absurd training routine. Of course, the only reason his body could even handle the Saitama-level nonsense was because it had been strengthened by the 2 energies inside him. Otherwise, a normal kid would have already been hospitalized several times over. Then again, considering the kind of nonsense Ash survived in the anime, maybe the Pokémon world simply ignored logic altogether. Using part of the million Pokédollars he had received earlier, Saturo began teaching various moves to his Pokémon while secretly saving James's portion of the money for future travel expenses. Somehow, through pure Pokémon world nonsense, Oriana learned Draco Meteor while Escanor learned how to use Psychic. Did it make sense? No. Did anyone question it? Also no. Eventually, both Oriana and Escanor evolved together before immediately making the same complaint to Cynthia. Saturo has too much free time. At that exact moment, Cynthia was sitting comfortably on top of Saturo's back while he struggled through another set of push-ups. Ha! Ha HH. Keep going, Cynthia said calmly. I need you to have at least 8 abs by the time we're done. You heavy idiot, Saturo muttered between breaths. Cynthia immediately placed a hand over her chest dramatically. How dare you speak to a lady like that? Saturo instantly replied, you aren't even a lady, so shut up. Silence. Dangerous silence. In the distance, Oriana burst into laughter while Escanor's expression darkened. The 2 Pokémon had apparently placed a bet earlier. The rules were simple. How long could their trainers go without provoking each other? Oriana guessed 10 seconds. Escanor, believing the 2 secretly cared about each other, optimistically guessed 1 minute. The loser would have to let the winner ride on their back. Without hesitation, Oriana extended her hand toward Escanor for payment. Escanor lowered his head in disappointment. A few moments later, Oriana jumped onto his back before using her personally invented move, sand surfing, to glide across the area at full speed while laughing victoriously. Meanwhile, Cynthia suddenly removed the heavy weights from Saturo's back and stared at him thoughtfully. Saturo immediately felt danger. Wait, what are you thinking, my dear friend? Cynthia smiled. That was the moment Saturo realized his life was over. An hour later, Cynthia had somehow prepared a blanket, pillow, and several suspicious items while Saturo stared at her nervously. What are you doing? He tried standing up only to realize he had somehow been wrapped tightly inside the blanket like a burrito. To make matters worse, black sunglasses had been placed over his face for absolutely no reason. Hey, this is dirty. Ignoring his complaints completely, Cynthia picked up the struggling Saturo and carried him home. Oriana and Escanor immediately saluted her. Yes, Mom. Even Phoebus looked slightly sympathetic from the corner. Not sympathetic enough to stop laughing though. Unfortunately for Saturo, his suffering had only begun. The moment they arrived home, Cynthia forced him to participate in the most horrifying game imaginable. House. Specifically, Cynthia declared herself the mother while Saturo was forced into the role of the child. Saturo wanted to escape immediately. Unfortunately, every Pokémon in the house had already sided with Cynthia. Traitors. Still, despite all the chaos, Saturo noticed something strange. Cynthia had changed slightly. It was subtle enough that he couldn't fully explain it, but compared to before, she laughed more often now. Her expressions had become softer too. Of course, Saturo was smart enough not to mention it aloud. He valued his survival. As the weeks passed, Saturo slowly realized his time in Sinnoh was approaching its end. In only a few months, he would eventually leave for Johto and Kanto. Because of that, he began focusing more seriously on his studies. Geography, regional cultures, medicinal herbs, poisonous plants, survival knowledge. Fortunately, thanks to his abnormal memory, Saturo only needed to read something once for it to become permanently engraved into his mind. Meanwhile, Cynthia continued obsessing over myths, ruins, legends, and ancient history while also dedicating herself to inventing new ways to annoy him. For example, Saturo once used his powers to teleport Cynthia directly into a freezing lake right before her bath before immediately teleporting her back out again. In retaliation, Cynthia learned trick shooting. Then she weaponized the Pokémon. Escanor started, accidentally, hitting Saturo with psychic whenever he walked by. Oriana developed the habit of dropping sand into his food. Even Phoebus somehow joined the conspiracy despite barely moving most of the day. Saturo eventually reached one terrifying conclusion. He was no longer fighting Cynthia alone, he was fighting an entire organization. 2 comments 0 vote, goodbye. 1. Cynthia was pouting, her cheeks puffed up in annoyance. Cynthia, why do you even want to leave? Isn't living rent-free in my house enough? Saturo stayed silent for a moment. Now I understand why people say girls are impossible to understand, he thought. He slowly removed his black glasses and looked directly at her, almost as if he were staring into her soul. Why do you want me to stay? He grabbed her hand lightly, teasing her on the surface. But in reality, he was trying to read her thoughts to understand her better. Cynthia, hmph, it's not like I want you to stay. I only want Escanor to stay. He doesn't even like you anyway. Her thoughts. Just shut up and listen, idiot. You can't even stay in one place without causing chaos. You'll definitely get hurt out there without me. Saturo, oh no, I don't want to part with Escanor either. He paused dramatically, but can you at least let me take Oriana? It'll get lonely without her. Cynthia, shut up, I'm not going with you. Suddenly, a memory resurfaced in her mind. Flashback, Nurse Joy, I heard Saturo is leaving, Cynthia, so, what does that have to do with me? Nurse Joy smiled so widely it looked suspicious. She started rambling about childhood sweethearts. Cynthia, what does childhood sweetheart even mean? After explaining for a while, Nurse Joy leaned closer with a grin. Well, if he said something like that to you, it probably means he wants you to go with him. She smiled like a demon finalizing a contract. Cynthia simply nodded, still not fully understanding the conversation. Then Nurse Joy leaned in even closer like a neighborhood aunt. You two have a crush on each other, don't you? Go for it, I support you. Before she could continue, Blissey karate chopped her from behind. Cynthia immediately started blushing and denied the entire accusation. Present, Saturo accidentally read through that entire memory. His face instantly turned red. He stepped backward in panic, completely flustered, while Cynthia herself also started avoiding eye contact after remembering the embarrassing moment. Nearby, Oriana and Escanor were casually eating popcorn. Saturo, no, I didn't ask you to come with me. You're becoming delusional. Cynthia crossed her arms proudly. Put it in the bag. I already said I'm not coming with you, so stop trying to gaslight me. Saturo looked away awkwardly. Then why don't you come with me anyway? Cynthia, because I want to study and improve properly. I'll take the examination route, unlike someone who wants to become a servant. Inner thoughts. Though if you really wanted to, you could just become my servant. Then we could go on adventures together. The moment the thought crossed her mind, Cynthia covered her mouth in horror. After seeing Saturo's expression, she panicked internally. Wait, did I just say that out loud? Her face turned bright red again. Ever since Nurse Joy introduced the concept of crushes to her, things had been going very wrong. Saturo, degree equals degree. Wait, what? She wants me to become her servant. After a few seconds, Cynthia somehow recovered her usual composure. Escanor stared blankly. Quote opening parenthesis comma dot closing parenthesis quote. Oriana, what happened? Escanor quietly explained the thoughts from both sides. Oriana, quote opening parenthesis comma dot closing parenthesis quote. Then she immediately whispered, go for it, Mom. You can do it. Cynthia cleared her throat and changed the topic. Anyway, what's so great about serving in some rundown minor gym? Saturo, no, I'm going to Charizard Valley. I'll spend a year there learning how to properly take care of a Charizard. Cynthia blinked. Why the hell do you want to go there? Note, Cynthia and Saturo doesn't fully understand what childhood crushes mean. 3 comments 0 vote. Goodbye to Saturo. Author, I know you're a lazy hobo, but this isn't the app for pouring out your grievances against the education system. A.N. Shut up, you little. Homer grabbing Bart Simpson gif. Cough cough. Continue. This part can be skipped if you want, but it's mainly here to explain the emotional depth of the two characters. A little explanation before anyone says something. Vegapunk voice please. A.N. Cynthia didn't even know what a crush was until Nurse Joy explained it to her. Unlike most girls her age, she never really got along with other kids. Most girls preferred traditionally feminine games like playing house, which Cynthia found boring. As for boys, they either didn't want to play with her because she was a girl, or stopped wanting to play with her because she somehow kept beating them after only a few tries. So naturally, fewer interactions means fewer conversations means, and almost nobody talking to her about things like crushes, meant she simply never learned about them. Think about it this way. If you barely had friends who talked to you, and your mindset was so focused elsewhere that even scrolling on your phone all day wouldn't make you notice certain topics unless someone directly told you, would you really know much about crushes either? And unless you meet someone eccentric, most people aren't randomly walking around asking others about their type. Well, with the sole exception of Aoi Todo, of course. He bagged Takata. Massive W for Todo fans. Absolutely tragic loss for Megumi. Cough cough. What I'm trying to say is, humans naturally react more emotionally to feelings when they first experience or understand them. Especially children. The first time you witness death, even if it isn't someone particularly close to you, you might cry, panic, or even throw up. But after years of experiencing or hearing about it repeatedly, most people stop reacting as strongly unless the person who died was truly close to them. This explanation is simply here to help readers understand why these two children react so emotionally to certain feelings. Cynthia stared directly into Saturo's eyes, almost as if she wanted to strip his soul bare. Cynthia, why do you even want to go there? Her thoughts. I heard that valley is filled with Charizard. No, with almost nothing but Charizard unless you count the Valley Master's Pokémon. The Valley Master also raises several water types near the water section to prevent large fires. Some of them are even Gyarados, though every Valley Master apparently hates keeping them around. Still, they can't go against league regulations. And with how difficult that place is, barely anyone has gone there for the past few years, so there must be a reason behind that. Though I also heard the current Valley Master's daughter is around our age and recently either started or completed her journey while her mother prepares to retire. But that can't be the reason, right? Saturo was completely dumbfounded. He already knew about love thanks to his idiot older brother constantly bragging about girls. But hearing Cynthia's thoughts directly was something else entirely. Especially when the usually selfish and prideful Cynthia was genuinely worried about him risking his life. For a literal stranger, Saturo, his face slowly turned red from sheer secondhand embarrassment. After awkwardly adjusting his composure, he leaned closer to Cynthia and remembered the advice his older brother once proudly gave him about talking to girls. He gently brushed a strand of hair away from her face. Then quietly asked, "Why don't you just admit you either want me to stay, or want to come with me?" Nearby, Oriana and Escanor were watching everything unfold. Oriana and Escanor, just ended already. This is even worse than the love drama we watched with Granny. Cynthia's entire face turned red like a tomato. Then, she immediately grabbed Saturo and punched him straight in the face. Her thoughts, better knock him unconscious than let this embarrassing charade continue any longer. Saturo caught her punch midway, then smiled lightly. Saturo, why don't we both give it our best? I'll participate in either the Kanto or Johto League after finishing my internship. That should take around a year. Charizard Valley was infamous for being extremely dangerous. Most people avoided internships there entirely because of the aggressive Charizard and Dragon types. Blackthorn Gym accepted that danger out of pride, but the Valley Masters of Charizard Valley were more considerate. Because of that, successful apprentices were usually rewarded with a Pokémon egg of their choice after completing their service. In exchange, they had to spend at least 9 months to a full year helping care for the Valley's Pokémon. 3 comments 0 vote. Goodbye 3, second last. Saturo. Good boy. A.N. Come here. Why? Saturo slowly raised his black glasses. A.N. Never mind. Continue. Cynthia was completely bewildered. Today was already embarrassing enough because of Saturo, but now he had actually dared to block her punch. Normally, whenever one of them was right, the losing side would silently accept the mocking remarks and wait for the other person to slip up later for revenge. But today, when she tried to knock him unconscious, he stopped her punch midair. Throwing hands with each other had basically become a normal occurrence at this point, so seeing him block her attack genuinely caught her off guard. Cynthia, what bet? Saturo suddenly remembered his older brother James. The self-proclaimed playboy, who constantly tried teaching his little brother how to have game and charm girls like some young master from a romance novel. Saturo, yar, are you sure you aren't secretly Chinese? The DNA testing centers aren't running away, you know. A.N. grabbed a piece of chalk and launched it directly at Saturo's head. A.N. Anyways, James once proudly explained to Saturo the so-called 5 stages of dealing with ladies. Or, in simpler terms, how to properly treat young ladies, according to James and apparently their father before him. Written by Morgan, this list was definitely not created to slowly prepare James into becoming Jezebel's future puppet after she sent her endless demands. A.N. It's not like forgot his father's name, okay. If I ever gave him one eye, First advice. The girl is always right. Saturo stared blankly at Cynthia while zoning out. Meanwhile, without him noticing, Cynthia started becoming more nervous and redder than a tomato. Saturo, nope, that's definitely wrong. Second advice. Say sorry, even if it's her fault. Saturo, nope. Third advice. Maintain elegance and tolerance. Saturo, absolutely not. They both knew each other's darkest secrets. Like Cynthia almost burning the house down while trying to bake a chocolate cake. Or Saturo nearly destroying the nearby barn's fence while training his Pokémon. Though, to be fair, he was the one getting trained by Cynthia that day because she had some blackmail material on him. Fourth advice. Follow her words like a creed. The lady will approve of you in her heart. Saturo looked directly at Cynthia. Saturo, nope, not happening. Fifth advice. Use bets to deal with women. You need to bend your fingers sometimes. In reality, his father wrote this while making absolutely sure that if James ever made a bet with a Jezebel, he would unconditionally lose through behind-the-scenes manipulation. Unfortunately, James thought this was genuine advice. Saturo, now this, I like. He leaned closer and said, Saturo, we'll each begin our journeys in our respective regions. The first one to collect all the gym badges while following the other person's conditions wins. Cynthia smiled. She already knew exactly what to do. Cynthia, you're the one proposing the bet, so it's only natural that you get the handicaps. Don't worry, I won't be too hard on you. Meanwhile, inside her head, Cynthia's thoughts, perfect, now I just need to lure him into my trap. If I win, I'll make this white-haired weirdo my servant for a whole year. What do you think about that, Elle? That's right, this is my perfect victory. That's right, I win. Cynthia continued speaking normally while internally celebrating like a villain who had already conquered the world. Saturo, all right then, my dear lady. Let's stick to our first bet. He leaned closer and whispered into her ear. Saturo. The loser becomes the winner's lackey for 1 year. Cynthia, deadass, 2 comments 0 vote, goodbye 4 last. Cynthia smiled like a beggar who had just won the jackpot. Saturo slowly raised his hand into the air. Saturo. Watch closely, Gohan. Using his psychic energy, he controlled Cynthia's hand and forced it to connect with his. Clap. Boom. A loud sound echoed from the point of impact. It was a perfect dap. Saturo leaned closer and whispered into her ear. Saturo. Then, my dear lady, the deal is final. Prepare to do my bidding for an entire year straight. Cynthia froze for a second because of how close he suddenly was, but the moment she processed his words, she instinctively snapped back. Cynthia, we'll see about that. Saturo, no, we won't, my lady. Cynthia, yes, we will. A vein bulged on Cynthia's forehead as she glared at him. Cynthia, are you mocking me with that tone? Saturo replied cheekily while grabbing her hand again, trying to read her thoughts once more. Saturo, what if I am, Miss Cynthia? Cynthia, get lost, you brat. I'm happy you're finally leaving this house. Maybe now I'll finally get some peace and quiet. Meanwhile, inside her thoughts. Cynthia's thoughts. Too close, too close. Stay calm. Wait, Why is my heart suddenly beating so fast? Cynthia, calm down, he's just messing with you. If you react the way he wants, he'll remember it until his grave. Unfortunately for her, Saturo's heart wasn't doing much better either. He leaned closer again and whispered, Saturo, oh, right, I forgot to tell you something. With my psychic abilities, I can randomly read your thoughts for short periods of time. And let's just say, a grin slowly spread across his face. Saturo, you gave me some very interesting material today. Cynthia instantly turned into stone. Then came the embarrassment. Her entire body heated up like a steak tossed onto a frying pan as she prepared to run for her life. Cynthia's thoughts, what the, that's such a bizarre ability. It should have been me, not him. That's not fair RR. Then she suddenly remembered the entire 3-chapter-long conversation she had in her own head earlier. Even her thoughts started stuttering from embarrassment. Saturo looked at her reaction, grinned even wider, and declared dramatically, Saturo, let the bet begin. Oriana and Escanor watched the entire thing unfold while eating popcorn nearby. Oriana and Escanor, damn it, we want a refund. You two don't even pay me. Escanor, you should be paying us to watch this nonsense. Oriana nodded in agreement. Damn. Saturo and Cynthia suddenly turned around at the same time and spotted Oriana and Escanor casually eating popcorn in the corner. Both children instantly turned red. Oriana and Escanor panicked. They immediately tried to teleport away. Saturo blocked it with his psychic powers. Then they tried escaping through the door, but Cynthia blocked the exit before they could even move 2 steps. Oriana and Escanor, Mom, Dad, leave us out of this. Their parents exchanged one silent look with each other, and then immediately punched both Pokémon in the face. After calming down, Saturo spent the rest of the day going around town to thank everyone properly before leaving. He even visited Cynthia's grandmother one last time. Although she clearly didn't want him to leave, in the end, she still respected his decision. A little after discussion, wait, did you two just speedrun 99.9% of all romance anime plots? Saturo, never thought about it that way. Let me get this straight. You started as childhood friends, live in the same house, fight every single day, share Pokémon custody, have matching emotional damage. One side accidentally discovers the concept of crushes. And now there's a 1-year servant bet involved. Saturo, when you say it out loud, it sounds bad. Bad, you literally unlocked the entire romcom starter pack before turning 10. Cynthia, romcom, you know what, never mind. Saturo, wait, hold on. What do you mean by servant bet? You whispered, my dear lady, into her ear like some dollar store aristocrat. Saturo, okay, first of all, rude. Cynthia slowly covered her face as steam practically rose from her head after remembering the scene again. Cynthia, why would you remind me? Oriana, Mom is overheating again. Escanor, at this point, we should keep a water bucket nearby. No, let them cook. Saturo, you are literally the reason this chaos exists. And yet I regret nothing. To be continued.